You could show me hundreds of people who have memorized the Torah from the first letter to the last letter and can relay it without looking into the book. Now, what we can do with Islam, with the Quran, is we can show you millions of people who have memorized the Quran from the first letter to the last letter of the Quran and can relay it completely from memory.
Moses would have taught a large group of people.
Okay, where did you get that from? That's what I want to know.
Well, this is part of the tradition.
No, you can't just claim without evidence.
No, because the claim of mass transmission is something that is observable to this day.
Do you have any written evidence of that?
It's irrelevant from...
Why is it irrelevant?
Because historical testimony means something. You don't
Exactly, that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, that's what I'm
When
giving
you say testimony, okay, we can't go and interview a person in Moses' time. So obviously this testimony has to be in some
because
form.
This is a familial tradition.
You know the historians normally write down the testimonies. All that is just a claim, right? Where's the evidence? You have not presented any evidence.
I don't need physical evidence. What evidence?
No need to shout, calm down.
No.
Look, if somebody tells me, wait a minute.
Totally
If somebody comes and says, I know hundreds of thousands of people who have seen a unicorn. Okay? Am I supposed to just believe them because they make that claim?
No!
Go back with your chains, but
independent
I'll involve
chains
Hashim as well. Look, what I'm trying to say to you is, there's two things that are involved here. Number one is establishing a chain.
Yes.
Number two is establishing a mechanism within that chain that ensures that something can be recorded and transmitted and preserved and passed on accurately.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that you'd have to do is you'd have to show me examples of potentially thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who've completely memorized the Torah and can relay the Torah verbatim without addressing the book itself, from the first page up to the last page, because that then becomes a mechanism.
As in through history or in our present day?
I'm saying even till present day, it should be a continuation till present day.
And why does it have to be? Why does it have to be hundreds of thousands of people who are able to tell you it verbatim?
Because what that establishes is that that's a very firm stronghold in terms of establishing an oral tradition that is impeccable, that has no flaws or problems. I would still be very impressed if you could show me hundreds of people who have memorized the Torah from the first letter to the last letter and can relay it without looking into the book. Now, what we can do with Islam, with the Quran, is we can show you millions of people who have memorized the Quran from the first letter to the last letter of the Quran and can relay it completely from memory. Millions. So what that establishes...
It's not very long, though.
I agree. But
there are hundreds.
It's over 600. It's over 600 pages, right? I think Hashim, we're talking about the preservation of the Torah.
Yeah.
Now Jeremiah 8:8 we brought up, I think, last time. What Josh is implying is that it's not talking about preservation of the Torah, but it's saying it's talking about. Sorry, what was your?
It's stopped raining.
Is it stopped raining?
What it's talking about there, what Jeremiah is actually saying, and this is what the Mephorshim explain, is that it's all well and good you guys saying, oh well, nothing bad's going to happen to us, we've got the Torah with us. It's all well and good saying that, but if you've got the Torah with us and you're not following it, and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then it's irrelevant. It mentions
not just following it.
Yes.
So it says the scribes.
You're writing it in vain, right? You're writing it in vain. It's a pen which is in vain. Sheker does not only mean false; it also means vain.
No, it says the scribes have falsified it.
Well, it says something in Hebrew.
What does it say in Hebrew?
8 sheker sofrim.
Meaning?
Right? La sheker also. It's done it in vain.
No.
Sheker.
Why do the English translate it as falsified?
Well, in some English translations,
or the false pens.
In some, I can't answer for some English translations, like the King James. I don't know what's going on over there, right? I don't.
So if you go to Chabad.org and you find the same translation, then what?
I don't know what it says in Chabad. I know what it says in my Cohen translation over here.
What does it say?
Is Chabad trustable in terms of its translation? Is it done by rabbis?
I don't know where they got their translation from. I've no idea. I don't know if they're using the Lubavitcher Rebbe's translation or they're just using the JPS, or I don't know.
No, but I'm just saying, generally
It's,
speaking,
it's done by the Jews, right?
within
it's,
your
not, it's not the
community.
Christians doing
Yeah.
it.
So
You can't blame the Christians for that.
I'm not blaming, right? I'm not. I don't know who's made the translation. I don't know if the translation Chabad have on their website.
Because that is only Hebrew, right? It
necessarily-
doesn't have the English.
No,
Or does
this
it have the
is
English?
Hebrew and English.
Okay,
right?
so
So
what
for
does the English
example-
say in
if
Jeremiah
example in
8:8?
here-
Let's see over there.
If, for example, you look in here,
I'll bring up the Chabad to see what that says.
so in here it says, "How can you say, 'We are wise, and the Torah of the Lord is with us'? Surely the pen wrought in vain the scribes. The wise men are ashamed, they are dismayed and taken. Lo, they have rejected the word of the Lord, and what wisdom is in them. Therefore I will give their wives to others and their fields to others, etc., 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 right?
But I'm saying the lamenting and the tearing of clothes, what was that to do with the scribes?
The lamenting, where's the lamenting? Because Jeremiah laments a lot in his book.
I think specifically when the scrolls are found,
Oh, in the story of Josiah,
he tears off his clothes.
no, Josiah,
Or tears his clothes.
Josiah tears his clothes.
Yeah, that's a different.
That's a different thing. The explanation of that, which I didn't know the last time we spoke about, so I know that we spoke about Josiah, we didn't speak about Jeremiah last time, but with regards to Josiah, the reason he teared his clothes was because it was opened to the rebuke found in the end of Leviticus, and he suddenly realized that this actually applies to the generations that have just preceded him, and he said, we're in trouble now.
So that was something that was lost.
How do you?
It wasn't lost, it was something he had not thought to apply to himself.
No, it wasn't existing in the Torah at the time.
No, as in the no, it existed in the Torah, but when they find this, when this scroll is handed to him, and it's opened to this specific place, he sees this as a sign.
No, but he wasn't aware of that, was he? And he
No,
said
he was aware
And he
of
said
it.
the previous generations have lost this.
No, it doesn't say that.
By the way, how do you trace the original, or at least what Moses preached in his time, without any manuscripts? Do you have any manuscript that date to, like, say, near Moses' time?
No, we don't, and we don't need it, because instead what we have is we have mass transmission of tradition.
What do you mean mass
We
transmission?
have mass transmission. At the beginning you have, right, so for example, how many sons did Jacob have? Right, this is before the time of
12.
Moses, right, 12, right? So you have these 12, and you're going to have in each generation from them at least a minimum number of 12, right? I think we can establish that.
No,
right?
but how do you establish this exact preaching? Exact same preaching.
Hold on. So at the time of Moses, right, at the time when they received the Torah from God in the wilderness, right, and Moses gives them the traditions that he's just been taught by God, right, the laws he's been taught by God and the explanations and everything, and he teaches it to his disciples, and throughout the years in the wilderness, it's taught throughout the entire nation, right? You have an entire nation
Yeah,
of
just keep
people,
that open.
right? And
The rain keeps coming in.
you have an
Yeah,
entire
go on, carry
nation of people, right, in the numbering in the hundreds of thousands, and
What do you mean hundreds and thousands? Where do you get that from?
Yeah. Okay, so you don't have to accept hundreds of thousands.
No, I don't know.
But
All I need is evidence. You can't,
Right.
just not your claim.
no, so the tradition is that there were hundreds of thousands. You don't have to accept that if you don't
No, but
want.
how do you know
But the
that it
point-
was transmitted to them? That's the thing.
No, because we're talking about at the first time in the
Okay,
wilderness.
so let's start
right?
from the beginning. In the wilderness,
Yes.
when they received the Torah,
Yes.
Moses, obviously, let's say he taught a few people.
Moses won't have taught a few people. Moses will have taught a large group of people.
Okay,
who
where
will have-
did
who
you
will
get
have
that
taught-
from? That's what I want to know.
Well, this is part of the tradition.
No,
This
you
is what
can't just
happens.
claim without evidence.
No, because the claim of mass transmission is something that is observable to this day. The reason why is
do you mean
because,
observable?
because in every generation
Yeah.
you're having large groups of scholars, and not just scholars but laymen, religious Jews, who are passing this down to our very day.
No, you
And so
said
the question is,
Wait. When you
so
say
that-
large number in the time of Moses, do you have any written evidence of that?
it's irrelevant from
Why is it irrelevant?
because historical testimony means something. You don't
Exactly.
Just
That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, that's what I'm
When you
giving
say testimony, okay, we can't go and interview a person in Moses' time. So obviously, this testimony has to be in some
because
form.
this is a familial
Because
tradition.
you know the historians normally write down the testimonies. And this is what we rely on after thousands of years.
Not
in the
if you
case,
have
in the case of
constant
Moses,
mass transmission
in the
today.
case of Moses, so the earliest manuscripts of the Torah, how old are they?
The oldest manuscripts, 1,500 years.
Only 1,500 years.
Yes.
Where are they?
Where are they?
Are you talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes.
Okay. So how many years after Moses is that?
Long time.
More than 1,000 years?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's
Now the
not
gap.
re-
Wait.
that's
How
not
do you
relevant.
feel? So this is the question. You are someone who studies law.
Yes.
Okay. Evidence is everything in your career. You know that.
Yes.
Yes. So between the time of Moses and the time of the extant manuscript, the old, let's say the Dead Sea Scrolls, you got like a period of 1,400 years or something, roughly.
For a long time.
Is that right? About
Yes.
1,400 years.
Fine.
Now, how do you fill that gap of 1,400 years with testimony? Sorry, without testimony, without evidence.
Well, as follows,
Go
right?
on.
How do you, right? I'm going to start off with a question. How do you, when you have testimony for something,
Mm-hmm.
what number of people would you say is something which is something which is going to be unfalsifiable, right? You've got a number of converging lines of evidence, lots of witnesses, right? What number would you say
Josh,
is?
it's not just about the numbers, it's
No,
about the
it's
quality.
going to be very
Not
important.
just the
It's going to be
quantity, it's the
it's going to be
quality.
very important.
Because you can have
How
one.
many numbers have you got? Let's see. How many have you got? From the time of Moses until the Dead Sea Scrolls, give me the number of witnesses, testimonies, written documents. Give me anything. Go on, Josh.
You're going to have. You're
Give
going
me
to have-
anything, please.
You're going to have large numbers in
no,
each
no, no,
generation.
no. I don't
You're
want
gonna
claims.
have
I want evidence.
physical
'Cause
evidence.
what you're doing right now
Yes.
is just making claims.
No, I'm not just.
I'm
making
asking you to fill the gap of 1,400 years with any evidence which you got.
Are
Right
we
now,
are
all I
we
see is
today,
claims.
Are we today the Jews today? Right. What you can see today, the Jews, right, the Jewish people, right. Were we the same Jews at the time of Muhammad?
What's that got to do with the? With the
Everything,
Torah?
absolutely everything.
So where's the evidence for your witnesses, testimonies, manuscripts? Where?
I'm coming to it. But
Please
before
do.
we can get there,
Yeah.
we first need to establish what is here today. Because in order to establish what happened in the past, when you don't have physical things to tell you about it, you need to first look at what happened today.
Josh, let me explain something to you. If you see a tradition today, if you can't trace that tradition back with evidence to the original, there's-
just claims it.
It's
Just-
not. No. I'm just saying
true,
that.
though.
I'm saying that it's not a robust argument. You can make the claim. I'm saying it's just not robust. Now we know that traditions over time can change. They're susceptible to change. We know, for example, that if we look at the revelations that have come before, look at the Bible. I know you don't accept the New Testament, but we can see, regardless of whether you accept its validity or not from being from God, but we can see that it's transformed over time. There were probably more witnesses for the Christian Bible than there may well have been in the recent times for the Jewish, because you went through mass extinction, mass killing.
Extinction?
Well, I'm talking about people who persecuted and killed millions of Jews, right?
Yes.
So your numbers were constantly being affected.
Yes.
Christianity, on the other side, you've got 2 billion people today.
Okay.
Yet even that level of supposed witness testimony and collaboration and everything else, we see a complete hodgepodge of things, how they've changed and been manipulated over time.
Whereas you can't see that with us.
Well, no, but
You can't say that without the originals. You can't.
I would say that
That's the reason I asked you for evidence.
because in the time period that you can see traceable with us, you cannot see changes.
No, but when you talk about the
In
time
the time
period,
periods that you can see,
bro, you're talking
right,
about 1,400 years of gap. What time period are you talking about?
You're not
1,400
you're
years
not
gap.
actually allowing me to make. I
Okay,
allowed
make
Abbas to make his
your point,
argument.
make your point.
You spoke for a long time.
Make your point.
Right?
Well, about
Look, at
a
the end of the
minute or
day,
so.
if an event, right, in which you have hundreds of thousands of witnesses, right, which are right, an event which is said to have had hundreds of thousands of
Which
witnesses,
event are you talking about?
is claimed to have mass revelation at Sinai, right? If that is claimed to have occurred, and it's claimed by hundreds of thousands of people who claim to be descendants of those original hundreds of thousands of witnesses, right? And if all proclaiming universally that they received this tradition from their forefathers, from their ancestors, generation to generation, then then no other independent claims or supporting evidence has to be presented.
But
in
Josh,
order to
all that
falsify
is just a
it.
claim, right? Where's the evidence? You have not presented any evidence.
I don't
It's
need
like,
physical evidence. What
you
evidence?
don't need to shout. Calm down.
No.
Look, if somebody
This is
tells me,
ridiculous.
wait,
This is totally
if somebody
utterly ridiculous.
somebody comes and says, I know hundreds of thousands of people who have seen a unicorn. Okay, am I supposed to just believe them because they make that claim?
No,
Thank you.
because it's totally different.
That's what I'm saying.
It's totally different.
How?
You haven't listened
How?
to what I said.
I did.
But Josh,
Because
I
we're talking
did.
about hundreds
I
of
understand.
thousands of people
But Josh,
who are saying
Josh,
that.
you've admitted that the Torah is an incredibly, it's about over 1,000 pages, right?
It's very long. Yes.
Very, very long, right?
Yes.
So, even if you have hundreds of thousands, even if I gave you that, you're talking about the Torah at the time of Moses about what, 3,500 years ago?
3,335.
3,300 years ago.
Yes.
Now, if that's not written down or it's not recorded, or the people haven't memorized it verbatim, it's very easy, especially because remember, if you look at Jewish history,
Yes.
you went through huge trials and tribulations in terms of, your priorities were survival.
That's only once we get into the diaspora.
Right, but what
And
I'm-
the diaspora
what I'm-
is the time periods where we have the manuscripts.
But what I'm-
it's where we were settled in the lands that we don't have the
But
manuscripts.
the question,
But that's the thing. Without the manuscripts, what else have you got as evidence?
As I literally just said, you have a nation of people that exists today that can attest that what their fathers taught them, and that their fathers taught them, and that their fathers
How many
taught
generations
them.
back can you go?
Go back. You can go back all the way because
Well,
you've got
no,
because
no,
you've
no,
got
wait,
large
wait,
groups every
when you
in
say
every
all,
generation.
look.
You have large groups of hundreds of thousands, even today millions.
Josh, listen.
right?
We
Hundreds of thousands
we have the
in every generation going back all the way.
Yeah, but
right?
we have the
That's how you
transmission.
have
Listen,
I don't
we-
care what transmission.
we
you
have the-
I can believe your transmission goes back to Muhammad. I don't.
No, but we have
I don't
evidence
care
for that,
about-
unlike you. That's the thing. That's the difference between the Jewish claim and the Muslim claim. We have transmission of not just the Quran but also the Hadith. Both of the transmissions go all the way back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
Both of
wasallam.
our
Now wait,
and all of our transmissions
all
go.
I'm asking is you provide a similar form of evidence that goes all the way back to Moses.
So basically, what you want is like a hadith chain. That's what you're asking.
Not Hadith. Look, we have transmission of the Quran and transmission of the Hadith. Both chains go back to Prophet Muhammad
we have
sallallahu alaihi
plenty of
wasallam, whom we
chains.
consider who got the revelation of that.
You want to plug the gap? Here's 3 chains that plugs the 1400 year
Okay,
gap.
so from these 3 chains,
Yes.
okay, that you have,
Yes.
now how do you know that it's been transmitted without any errors, exactly as Moses preached?
Because of the unfalsifiability of mass transmission.
Okay,
When you have mass transmission of text and mass transmission of tradition going through a family unit, basically, a national family unit, which for at least the first 1400 years were living in the same general area, right?
so these
the
names
Middle
you got
East.
there,
Yes.
do you know them? Do you know anything about them? The
Yeah.
names you got there?
Yeah.
Where
can
where
tell
is
you
their
about-
biography, for example? Each member of that, where is the biography? Where can you find it?
You don't have biographies either. We don't have
No, we have.
biographies.
Hold on. We do.
No, you don't. I've looked.
It's called
When you-
Ilm
when
Rijal.
you- I know. I've looked at these things, and they're nowhere near
So
as good
Josh,
as people
Josh, what-
as you
Josh-
make them
So
sound. when you
wait.
say
What do you know about
biography.
Ilm Rijal? What do you know about it? Let's see.
That you have various different descriptions as to whether or not this person was a faithful person,
Yes.
or whether or not this person
Who the
was not
teacher
such a
was,
faithful
what
person,
family
who
they
the
came
teacher was,
from.
the family came from.
Do you have such a
the
tradition?
children, the scholars.
We have
Do you have
we
such a tradition?
But when you say biography, you make it sound as if you've got these big books for each and every one.
I
of
never
them.
said big books.
But everyone knows.
As long
when
as
say
you know the
biography,
person
that's
is
what it sounds
reliable. No,
like.
no.
Everyone knows
The
that.
hadith.
And everyone has been fooled
when you
by it.
when you talk about falsification methodology here, where you can say somebody is false or somebody is not, okay, or their transmission or their testimony is true or false, then you need to know that person. You can't just believe every Tom, Dick, and Harry who comes along and says, "Oh, this is what Prophet Muhammad said." You know, we have many false hadith. So this what do you say? Science of hadith. This science of hadith actually takes care of those false
the right
hadiths
job. Yeah.
and the categories which are true and the categories which are daif or weak hadiths. We have this science of hadith. So it's not just like every Tom, Dick, and Harry who makes claims, we believe it. And that's the reason I keep saying to you,
That's fine.
when you say hundreds of thousands, but you don't know any of them, it is regardless of whether you have millions. If you don't know them, it makes no difference because anyone can say anything that Moses said, for example. Yes? Why would you believe that?
Because who are they, right? Where are they coming from? Who
Exactly,
are their
that's
families?
Ilm Rijal.
Yes, that's what we have, but we have it on a much greater scale than
Where
you
is this?
have.
Where is this?
The entire Jewish people, the entire religious
Okay,
Jewish
give me a
people.
name you know whom you know that this person transmitted from Moses. Give me one name, go on.
As in directly, as in his...
Yeah. From the time of Moses.
As in Moses'
like
students.
the way we have the companions.
Transmitted towards today?
Yeah,
or
like the
you're
way
talking
we have
about
the companions of the
Moses?
Prophet.
Oh.
You know, we know their names. For example, we know Zayd bin Thabit was a personal scribe of
Fine.
Prophet Muhammad
Okay,
Sallallahu Alaihi
fine.
Wasallam.
So
We know a
Moses'
bit about
main
his
student.
life.
Fine.
Okay, so give me a few names
Fine.
from the time of
So
Moses.
Moses' main student was Yehoshua ben Nun,
Right.
who ended up becoming the successor, right, and led them into the land of Israel.
Okay.
He's from the tribe of Ephraim. Then you have, for example, Pinchas, who was Moses' nephew, who was the high priest that succeeded Aaron. You have another example, Nachshon, who was the prince of the tribe of Yehuda, and he was the first person to go into the Red Sea on the way out from
So,
Egypt.
Josh, what I'm trying to
Or
explain-
another
Josh,
example,
And did any of these people write down anything from Moses?
whether they wrote books that look.
Because Zayd bin Thabit did write down.
It's very
He was a
possible.
scribe.
It's very
He memorized
possible.
it, and he taught other people. So you see, there is a clear documentation with regards to the Quran and the Hadith.
Well, they may have written stuff down, but that's not.
Let's not
but that's
speculate.
the-
If they haven't written, or if they have written, that's all I want to know. You cannot say, I assume they might have written,
well,
because then that's not reliable, is
the
it?
tradition is that's the way that tradition passed down is that people, in order to help themselves remember what their teachers were teaching them, would write down notes. And those notes were not something that was going to be published and given over to everyone else. Now, I can't give you any evidence that these notes were happening 3,000 years ago. That's what our tradition
No, but you
says.
don't even have evidence that they wrote it down. You are saying
Okay, wait.
because it was popular, then they might have written it down.
Okay.
That's basically what you're saying.
So,
That's not what I'm saying,
basically,
and
what
you
you're-
know it.
So basically, what you're saying, Josh, is that these people will be being taught. Some people would have maybe written notes down, or you'd expect them to write notes down. Okay.
The people who are being taught
Yeah.
and being given, for example, smicha,
Yeah.
which was where the teacher had basically assessed that
Yeah.
you have reached
A level of-
you've memorized all of it,
Yes.
right, and now you know exactly how to give it over yourself, right? So he would place his hands over the person's head. And bestow upon him the ability to give smicha
Yeah.
onwards, and this is how the chain would continue in a holy manner, right?
So you have all of these people.
Yes,
You have all of these chains.
yes,
You have all of these people who are, for the large part, relying upon memory,
yes,
right? And then eventually, at 1,500 years ago, the Torah is finally compiled and it's written down.
You mean the oral Torah?
The oral Torah is finally
Yes.
written down, right? Okay. Now, can you see that in 2,000 years, that process errors can creep in, whether they're minor or major or whatever. but
Chinese
errors
whispers,
can
this kind of
creep in.
things.
But this isn't a case of Chinese whispers.
No, I'm just
Because
asking you a question.
Right, so is it possible? It's possible. But let me
Right.
explain why it's extremely unlikely and unreasonable to assume that happened. The reason is because when you are somebody who is a transmitter of a holy tradition, and you believe with all your heart and soul that this is the sacred tradition, and you're one of the keys of passing the divine tradition down to the next generation, then you will do everything in your power to make sure that you have not changed it. And this is the sacred task that Moses entrusted upon
But
his
Josh,
disciples,
you're now
and what
assuming-
they entrusted
Right,
upon
but
their
Josh, now
disciples.
you're assuming that everybody in that chain was honest, was law-abiding, decent, and actually allowed the text to dictate doctrine rather than potentially the doctrine dictating the text. That's an assumption.
Yeah.
And we know throughout human history, and we have it even in Islam, where we have people who are known as liars and we discard what they said. Because not everybody, unfortunately, will accept the truth, or they'll accept what they're supposed to accept, right?
If I look, for example, on this
That's
chain,
human nature. No, but my point to you is this, Josh, yes? I was watching a discussion with Paul Williams, and he was saying this notion about there just being one Torah is actually not true. So if you look at the different Torahs, and I don't want to go into it because I'm not knowledgeable about the subject, but I think I'll refer back to his reference on those Torahs, is that you do find some differences in those Torahs, right? So, and what I'm trying to explain to you is that even from the text itself, it talks about something to do with the scribes, and it talks about scrolls being found that he was not aware of, and talking about generations who would have been in error because they wouldn't have been following that teaching. I think you know where that verse is, right?
Where?
In fact, the people who have actually investigated
Now-
the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Right.
they did find many variations
Right.
from
Yes.
what you consider as the oral Torah.
Yes.
So how do you reconcile that?
I reconcile that by stating
Which one do we
by
believe, the
stating
oral one
quite
or the written one?
categorically
No, but Josh,
that
what is the
stating quite
verse that
categorically
we discussed last time? Do you
the
remember?
Dead Sea, yeah, we discussed the passages in Kings and Chronicles about the story of Josiah and the Torah scroll.
where the temple is being rebuilt,
Well,
and some scrolls are found,
rededicated.
and some scrolls are found.
A scroll.
A scroll is found,
Yes.
and then he laments. He tears his clothes.
Yes, and I explained this already.
And the reason why he does that is because he says that the generations were not aware of this.
No, he didn't say they weren't aware of it. He said that they didn't keep it.
They didn't keep it.
And the reason he lamented was because he opened it up to a specific section, the end of Leviticus, right,
Yeah.
which is the rebuke.
Sister, sorry,
and
there's a
says that
camera
you're going
behind
to
you.
be going.
You can come on this side if you want to.
That because of sins you're going to be going into exile.
Let
And
the
he
sister come
suddenly
closer if she
realised
wants to.
when it was
Please.
open to this particular place, this was a very bad omen.
So
And
Josh, he
realised
wasn't
that this
aware
was-
of that, though.
No, he was aware of the verses. There's no question about that.
Josh,
he was the king.
he was
a
upset that
righteous
he
person.
was upset
The
that people
chapter
weren't
has-
following
The
it.
chapter has already said that he was righteous and he was following
But Josh, he was upset and
Going to pray
angry
Maghrib.
it. The people weren't following
Continue.
it. Yes, of course.
because this scroll was found. The scroll was found that had been lost, that wasn't in existence at the time. So my point to you is that that's a clear indication. That's a clear indication of something that's now been lost, but it was refound. Now that principle means that there could have been other things that could have been lost that were never found, or that they could have been changed, right, by people, or something clearly has been left out. Now that must have been, I would imagine, either by accident or deliberately.
I don't know how many different ways I can put this. That when the king saw the Torah opened up to the very scary rebuke.
Let's pull the verse out. Let's pull the actual verse out, because you're a lot more knowledgeable than I am. Let's read the verse in the Torah, because I think that's probably more important. Otherwise, I might be wrong. I might be saying it wrong, or you might be saying it wrong. But it's better that we. Do we do put the umbrella? Or it's not raining, but if it's raining, I'll hold the umbrella over you. I don't know how you read that. I need my glasses. It's so small.
I've got much better eyesight
You
than
clearly have.
than the average Jew.
You
I don't wear
have.
glasses.
You clearly have, Josh.
You've seen all of us. Almost all of them are wearing glasses.
Well, I haven't noticed that.
Should we get some proof for Dr. Grant?
Oh yes, Doctor. Where were you? I was talking. No, because we were having a discussion.
yeah.
Come, please, come.
Oh, I eat my carrots. Yes.
So I'm just trying to speak to Josh about last time we discussed a verse where a scroll is found in the temple.
Second King.
It's Second Kings, is it?
Second Kings and Second Chronicles.
And then the king laments, tears his clothes because Josiah, because this scroll was clearly not in the Torah or the teachings of that time. It was something that was now found. So what Josh is saying is that no, the king knew that. He's saying that the king actually knew that part of the Torah, but he simply lamented because the people were not following it. But I'm saying, but what
He
if he knew?
lamented because he realised that what the Torah said about the sinners was in fact
Well, let's read the verse, because I think as I
applied
say,
it to him.
Wasn't he 8 years old when he became king?
well, let's not get into that now.
Possibly.
Let's just first.
I think you might be right. Well done. I think you might be right about that.
I think it was King.
Was it
Yeah.
Kings?
It's in both Second Kings
I have a
and
horrible
Second
memory. I
Chronicles.
can
It's in
never
both.
remember the actual verses. I should spend more time doing that.
Well, Chronicles is a retelling from a different perspective.
So Second Chronicles from verse 8 onwards.
Okay, Imran, read it, and then Josh read it to see if there's any difference between the two readings. But Imran, you read it first.
Which one are you in? Chronicles or Kings?
Kings. Second
Right,
Kings.
Oops, I've just dropped your coffee.
That's all right.
raining again.
Is it pretty much this on? Sorry.
I would hold it, but cold.
That's okay. That's no problem. That's all right. That's no problem.
I like this kind of stuff, especially when it comes to the tonight. I'm a big fan.
Are you?
Like I
Right,
said,
chapter 22. Yoshiyahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Yerushalayim. And his mother's name was Yedidah, the daughter of Adiah from Bozkat. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in all the ways of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand, nor to the left. And it came to pass in the 18th year of King Yoshiyahu, that the king sent Shaphan, the son of Atzalyahu, the son of Meshulam the scribe, to the house of the Lord, saying, Go up to Hilkiyahu the high priest, that he may sum up the silver which is brought into the house of the Lord, which the keepers of the door have gathered of the people, and let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of the work, that have the oversight of the house of the Lord, and let them give it to the workers who are in the house of the Lord, to repair the breaches of the house, to carpenters and builders and masons, and to buy timber and hewn stone to repair the house. Yet no accounts were kept with them of the money that was delivered into their hands, because they dealt in good faith.
Now we get to the juicy bit.
And Hilkiyahu the high priest said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found a book of the Torah in the house of the Lord. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the king, and brought back words to the king, and said, The servants have gathered the money that was found in the house, and have delivered it into the hands of them that do the work, and the work that have the oversight of the house of the Lord. And Shaphan the scribe told the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the king. And it came to pass, when the king had heard the words of the book of the Torah, that he rent his clothes. And
He
the
did
king-
what, sorry?
That he rent his clothes.
What does that mean? Rent?
That means he tore his
He
clothes.
tore his clothes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Why did he tear his clothes?
Because of the words that he heard.
Yes.
The words of the book of
Hang
the
on
Torah
a
that he
second.
heard.
Yeah, super.
Right? And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Achikam the son of Shaphan, and Achbar the son of Michaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the king's servant, saying, Go inquire of the Lord for me, and for the people, and for all Yehudah, concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened to the words of this book.
Right. So what does
To
that
do
mean?
according to all that which is written
means
concerning us.
That means that the generations before
I've not been keeping it.
have not been keeping this book.
Which is exactly what we've learned already in the book of Kings.
Okay, hold on. Why were they not keeping it?
Because of the idolatrous kings that were steering people away.
Or because they didn't have the book?
That's not what it says.
It says it's
I'll tell you something. There's a very important piece of phraseology that I want to point out. That I want to point out from what it says here. In the Hebrew, it says in verse 13, Al Asher lo shomeru avosenu al divrei hasefer hazeh la'asos kol hakosot oleinu. Right, which means they have not hearkened to the words of this book to do according to all that which is written concerning us. Concerning us. What does it mean concerning us? Right? Well, concerning us sounds like something about them in particular. If you look at the end of Leviticus,
But Josh, just going
Yes.
back to that point, he tears his clothes
Yes.
and he laments.
Yes.
Yes.
now have a look at
That
the end
our
of Leviticus.
fathers
Yes.
were not abiding by these teachings.
Yes.
Now, no, hold on. If you're claiming that he knew about those teachings,
Yes.
then he already knew that
Josh,
his
could you-
forefathers were not
Because
following
we can't
those
see you
teachings.
now.
I know,
you're
but I
covering
don't
the
want my
light.
Tanakh to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
wet.
No, no,
and the
I'm
rain
holding it-
is
I'm-
no, but the rain is coming this
Okay,
way.
I'll hold it over that way. I'll hold it over that way. So, Josh, what it indicates, Josh, is if he was already aware of those teachings existing, and if he was already aware.
Just 1 second. If we can move it round, because the rain is blowing this way,
Okay.
it'll be a lot easier.
All right, okay, and it's come round this way. If he was aware that those teachings already existed, therefore he was already aware that his fathers, i.e. the generations before, were not abiding by those teachings.
Yes.
There would be no shock and awe and tearing off his clothes. The very fact that he's shocked and he tears his clothes is that now something is found
Yes.
that he wasn't aware of.
No, not that he wasn't
And that the
aware
people
of,
were not
that
aware
he
of.
had not given, that he had not paid due diligence to.
But why was
something that he had not yet applied to us?
Was he
Applied
aware
to
that
us
was
now.
he aware that
He
that
was
was
aware of these verses. He was
What-
aware.
so he
of
was
what
aware that
of
these
what
were
he
God's
heard.
words?
Yes, he was aware of
before
it.
that scroll was found?
Yes.
So why was he then shocked and tore his clothes?
As I said before, because of the words that he heard. The words that he heard.
But he knew those words.
He knew them, but he had never applied it to himself. He had never applied it to his own
So
generation.
So didn't he believe that those words that he knew were the Torah?
He knew they were the Torah, but he had never thought that this was that in his generation, this was something that was now going to come to pass.
Right. So he only really accepted those words.
Not accepted, realised the implications.
Okay. He only realised the implications of those words.
Yeah.
So do
Yes.
you understand the
Once
contradictory
he
nature
found
of
the
what you're
scroll,
saying?
but not before he found the scroll.
So what you're saying?
Because of the words that he was being read from the scroll.
Yeah, but he was not.
Remember,
But he was already aware of those
No,
words.
because when Shaphan comes in, right? Shaphan comes in and he reads him specific words. He doesn't read him the whole Torah, right? I think we can agree on that.
He reads
him
the
specific
scroll
words,
that's just found.
Right? Yeah, he reads from the scroll.
That's just
and,
found.
and it's those words that shock him.
But he's
So
already
what
aware
is-
of them. But he's already aware of
Yes,
those words.
because if you're a king and you're someone who fears the word of God, and suddenly one day a scribe comes in and reads and says, "Oh, I found this scroll," and he reads out he reads out words, right? And it happens to be the exact words that are about punishment and are about what's going to happen if you don't listen.
Yes.
Then that's going to be an omen. You're going to see that as a bad omen for yourself.
But I wouldn't be shocked because I'm already aware of those words.
Fine, so maybe he wasn't shocked, he was very distressed.
Well, he was
very distressed.
Distressed to the extent where he tears his clothes.
Yeah, he tears his clothes in mourning because he sees, look what's going to happen now.
And he talks about the forefathers not abiding by those teachings.
Yes, it's because of that that this is not going to come to pass.
Let's be honest here. Forget the context that you have been taught within the Judaism. As a non-Jew, even if I don't have a dog in the race, let's say I'm not even a religious person, and I hear that, be honest, what's the initial reaction to hearing that? The initial reaction will be, here is something that's been found that this person was not aware of. Now suddenly it's confirmed. He's shocked that the forefathers haven't abided by these teachings, and he tears his clothes out of frustration and anger and upset and shock. Would you say that's a more reasonable conclusion, or would you say the more reasonable conclusion is that he was already aware of these teachings, he was already aware that this was part of the Torah, but this was just a reminder to him, and it was because of the reminder that he got so upset and angry about it? What would be more reasonable? No, you answer that first.